Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and I'm finally back with another Game of Thrones Season 8 news video. Now, I just want to issue a huge spoiler warning for everyone out there. We have some very key plot details to the upcoming season, so if you don't want to know them, please leave this video now. Now, for those of you who have stuck around, we got some key information on 2 action set pieces that are going to take place in Season 8. And they really align with what we've been speculating so far. And the first set piece is Winterfell. In the past, we've seen a ton of construction around the Winterfell set. They've been building up the castle so they don't have to rely on CGI. What this tells us is that the cast is actually going to be interacting with these set pieces. They've also really fleshed out the outside of the castle. And they've done that by adding snow around the outside perimeter of the castle, as well as they've dug trenches and kind of a moat around Winterfell. And if all that's not enough to hint at a battle sequence, we've also seen trebuchets on this set of Winterfell. And these trebuchets are specifically a different design than the ones we've seen on the King's Landing set, hinting that it actually belongs to another army. Outside of the construction of the Winterfell set, we've also seen cast in and around. We've seen an Unsullied scene that's being filmed very close to the Winterfell set, and it's very key that this wasn't during a battle sequence. But it seems like they were getting ready for the White Walker threat, as all of the Unsullied have been seen with dragon glass tipped spears. And this makes a lot of sense because in the last season we saw Jon mining dragonglass from Dragonstone, and it would make sense to arm the Unsullied because that's one of Daenerys' biggest assets. She has a little less than 8,000 Unsullied, and they are going to play a vital role in helping defeat the White Walkers. So now looking at all this news, will there be an attack or will there be a siege, and who will it be? And I have either 2 possibilities. It's either going to be the White Walkers or the Golden Company, which Euron Greyjoy is ferrying from Essos. And both possibilities will result in vastly different outcomes. And the evidence that we have seen could honestly back up both scenarios. It seems inevitable that the Night King will eventually make its way to Winterfell. And it seems like a given we know that this is going to happen. It seems that the White Walkers are going through the east side of the north and will eventually end up at Winterfell. And it would make sense for Jon and Daenerys to hear this news that they're moving and approaching on Winterfell, that they would prepare their armies. Daenerys would have her men fashion dragon-tipped spears for the Unsullied. Jon would prepare Winterfell by building a trench or a moat around the castle. The reason is that we've seen how whites do around water.
Dumb cunt.
And I understand that the water could potentially freeze, but this is where the hot springs of Winterfell could factor in. But I think that is really rare. And in this situation, the trebuchets could also be useful. If they saw the White Walkers approaching, they could just throw shit at them, because it's a horde, so they need to thin it out as much as they can. But one thing I will say is that if the White Walkers reach Winterfell, it will not be a siege, it will be an attack. The Night King is too strong, he has too many men, and he also has a dragon. So I think in the case of a threat from the White Walkers, we would get an action sequence, but it would be more of a fight or flight situation. I think the majority of characters would evacuate Winterfell and we'd see it get destroyed. And another possibility is Cersei's Golden Company. Euron Greyjoy can go straight from Essos to White Harbor and work their way up to Winterfell and lay it under siege. Looking at it in context, it seems kind of stupid because Cersei would lose a lot of her men, but I think she's been pushed to the point where she doesn't care. She's lost everything and she'd be willing to send men to Winterfell if it meant that it would destroy her enemies faster. And I think her whole story has been foreshadowing this. She constantly echoes Tywin's advice, saying that only stupid people go north to Winterfell.
For me, I'm their king.
But you've just invaded their homeland, asked them to kill their brothers.
I'm not asking.
The North cannot be held. Not by an outsider, it's too big and too wild. And when the winter comes, the 7 gods together couldn't save you and your royal army. A good king knows when to save his strength. And when to destroy his enemies.
And I think in this season she could contradict herself and really prove that she's the Mad Queen. And in this situation, Jon would again prepare Winterfell, build moats to protect themselves from a siege. The trebuchets seen on the Winterfell set could easily be from the Golden Company. And in this situation, it wouldn't be an attack, it would be a siege. And maybe the only way that Jon and everyone else can get out of Winterfell from this siege is from the White Walkers coming. And that leads us to the second action sequence location. And that is what we've been speculating. It's King's Landing. But this mock-up castle that they're building isn't the Red Keep. It's the streets of King's Landing. And there are a couple key points here. One, they're not using their old set. They're building a complete new one out of wood. And last time I checked, wood is extremely flammable. And it's cheap. And secondly, they've been doing controlled fire tests. So what this clearly tells me is that this street, or this castle area that they're building, is not going to last. and it's going to be burned to the ground. But the question is, what color flame will this castle be burned by? Will it be burned by red flame or blue flame? Is it going to be Daenerys or the Night King? Now, firstly, let's discuss the Night King. I highly doubt that the Night King would leave his army and fly by himself to the Red Keep and destroy it. Because first of all, the Night King wouldn't see the significance of King's Landing. It's just another castle with other people in it. He doesn't care about the throne. And secondly, the Night King has been portrayed as a wave of extinction. Everywhere he goes, he wipes out in order to build up his army and push south. And I believe he will keep that strategy. He's going to destroy every single location on his way south until he reaches King's Landing, and then he will continue to go south until he reaches Dorne. So in a situation where the Night King actually does attack King's Landing, it would be a situation where he has taken over the majority of Westeros. And I think that is highly unlikely. What I do think is an even more likely scenario is Daenerys. And I'm not one of these people who says that Daenerys is the Mad Queen or is going to be the Mad Queen. I think she's a great character just like any other character on the show. And I think a scene like this would really push her character in another direction. I think in this season we're going to see Daenerys be pushed to such a point of desperation that she will have to attack King's Landing. And that will result in some civilian life being lost, as well as the death of Cersei. So a common question would be, where does this desperation come from? And I would say overall they're in a pretty stressful situation. Daenerys has already lost a dragon to the White Walkers, and they're coming south faster than ever. We ended season 7 with Daenerys still believing that Cersei was going to send men north to help her defend it. And as soon as Jaime Lannister reaches Winterfell and tells Daenerys that Cersei's not looking at surrendering, that could be enough to push her over the edge. Because it leaves them in a very unsafe situation where you have the White Walkers coming from the north and the Golden Company potentially coming from the east. And it's a dangerous situation where the Golden Company could just become fodder for the Night King's army. So looking at these two action set pieces, I think they go together great. And in my personal opinion, this is what I think will happen. Around episode 3, I think we're going to see Winterfell get attacked. Not by the Golden Company, but by the White Walkers. I think Jon and Daenerys are going to anticipate them coming and start sending people to White Harbor to escape. Maybe ferry them over to Dragonstone where they're safe and surrounded by water. I think Jon is going to stay at Winterfell and try and fend off the Night King and try and get as many civilians out of Winterfell as possible. And this will lead to a giant action set piece where I think, hopefully, we're going to see Jon ride Rhaegal in order to combat the Night King on Viserion. Long story short, Winterfell's going to be destroyed and everyone's going to be heading south for safety. And I think in this situation, they're going to be trapped between the Golden Company and the White Walkers. And in this situation of desperation, Daenerys is going to hop on Drogon and fly to King's Landing and burn it down to try and kill Cersei in order to end the contract between her and the Golden Company. By killing Cersei and burning King's Landing to the ground, it will end the contract, and hopefully Daenerys, Jon, and the Golden Company can make peace. And I think this is where the story will get really interesting, because the Golden Company was founded on Targaryen bastards. And we're in a situation where we have two Targaryens in leadership, Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow, who's known as Aegon Targaryen. It's been pushed that Jon is the heir to the throne. So it seems like the Golden Company would want to back Jon more than Daenerys. On top of the fact that Jon knows the most about the White Walker threat, it seems like he's going to be the one who takes a leadership role over Daenerys. And I think that's just going to be an underlying plot point to the story. They're going to be fighting off the White Walkers, but it's also going to be a Game of Thrones between Daenerys and Jon Snow. Two family members who are in love, and one who's fighting for the throne and one who doesn't want it, but power keeps residing with him. But that is it, everybody, for my news video today. Please, in the comment section down below, tell me what you think will happen. I genuinely want to know, and I will be answering your comments. I also want to say school has been incredibly busy. That's why I haven't been uploading as many videos as I would like. What I'm going to say is when the holidays start rolling around, you're going to start seeing more BuzzTox. So, until next time, I'll see you guys later.